All right, everybody. Today we're talking about Athens. So last time we talked about Sparta. Today we're going to be talking about Athens. So you need to know a little bit about both of them, and you're going to be able to tell me about the configurations of their city-states, how they're similar, how they're different between Athens and Sparta. And these are two very, very important city-states because they will be talking about them a lot when it comes to the wars in Greece. Okay, so Athens is right up after this isthmus. So remember, whole mainland Greece is a peninsula. Oops, how did that move? Oh no. All of mainland Greece is a peninsula. But there's in the second kind of peninsula here where Sparta developed on. This is the Peloponnese Peninsula. It's connected to the mainland peninsula here by an isthmus, where Megara is located. Then Athens is right here. This is called the what is it called? I can't pronounce it. The Attica Peninsula. And they are not too far away from each other. Athens was at least a 2-day trip from Sparta back then, because remember, they don't have, vehicles that you can drive. And with all the mountains and stuff, they would have had to take the seas going across here. There's Sparta. There's Athens. In Athens, citizens raised their children under a different set of values than they did in Sparta. So remember, Sparta, their big thing was all about. Sorry, I got a dog here with me. He's gonna come pop his face into the video for a second. Yes, this is my son's dog, and we're babysitting him today. He just wants to be into everything. Okay, so anyway, they raised their children under a different set of values than Sparta. Sparta's valued war. I'm sorry, this dog will not leave me alone. They value war and they value fighting, and they don't think education is very, very important. But in Athens, they do. Athens believed in creating well-rounded citizens, kind of like the United States, in both body and mind. Think about education in the United States. Pretty important. You need to go to school. But we also place a high value on art, on being able to design things, architecture, sciences. We place a high value on sports and things like that, drama and acting. That's how the Athenians raised their kids, raised their citizens to be well-rounded adults. In school, students, and when I say students, guys, I mean boys. I'm sorry, girls, boys, learned reading, writing, math, sports, and music. This is why I say that I would much, much rather live in Athens and in Sparta than in Athens as a woman. Athenian husbands controlled their wives. Women did not get hardly any say in Athens. In fact, they weren't even really allowed to leave their house. Wealthy women ran the household. They raised their children, but they didn't go out alone. They weren't allowed to be out without the presence of a man. They definitely weren't even really allowed out of the house very much, except for certain festivals. Now, if you were poorer in Athens, you had a little bit more freedom because you had to help earn money, but you worked for much lower wages than men did. Again, so I really don't think that I would want to be in Athens as a woman, just because if you were in Sparta, you could pretty much do what you wanted and didn't have to worry about it. Where in Athens, you were like controlled. Beginnings of a democracy. Even as Athens thrived, many Athenians felt that they had little voice in their government. They didn't have a lot of say, and most people did not like that. At the very beginning, they had a monarchy, and then Athens decided that they didn't want one person to rule everything, so they replaced it with an aristocracy. Again, that's when all the rich, wealthy, landowning people made the decisions, which didn't make poor people happy. And then again, it usually collapses because aristocrats want to stay rich. The poor people, there usually starts to be a big divide. The poor people can never get out of that. And so then there ends up being revolts and fighting. Aristocrats here started to fight with each other. Then farmers again began to protest because they had decreasing land and wealth. Farmers began to rebel and demanded an end to all debts. That's money owed and land for the poor. Oops. Then comes this man called Solon. The nobles knew they were in trouble. So in 594 BC, they called a noble named Solon, who both sides trusted. So he would have been a wealthy landowning person. Solon, though, happened to decide to side with the poorer people. He canceled all debts owed. He freed farmers who had been forced at this time to become slaves, basically, and work the land, not getting anything in return. He allowed all male citizens, again, you're going to see this theme hopping up all over Athens. It's male, 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 male. Male citizens could participate in the assembly and the law courts. So all the male citizens that were born there, not slaves, not women, they could participate in government. Solon's reforms were popular among common people, but Solon refused to give away the wealthy nobles' land. Then comes this man called Piocestratis. After Solon, there was 30 years of turmoil that was just gripping Athens. And then this man, remember, this is what I told you, that not all tyrants are bad. A tyrant named Piocestratis took force by power and ruled as a sole decision maker. And he did several things to win support of the poor. The poor really liked Piocestratis. Here's some things he did. He divided large estates of land among landless farmers. He loaned money to the poor, and he gave the poor jobs building temples and other public buildings. So the poor people actually had jobs and money under Pisistratus. He also took those big chunks of land and he gave land to farmers who didn't have any land. So, of course, they really liked Pisistratus. Then the next guy that comes and rules Athens is called Kleisthenes. He took power in 508. He made the assembly more important. The people that were in the assembly had new powers. They could participate in open debate. They had to judge court cases, and they appointed army generals. He also created a 500 citizen assembly to conduct daily business. Remember, citizen, male. The council proposed laws, dealt with foreign lands, oversaw the treasury, which is their money, and was an important development for democracy. Democracy, again, just to be clear, between all these different government types we talked about. Monarchy, oligarchy. Monarchy is one person ruling. Oligarchy is multiple people ruling, like to, small group. Again, not everybody has decision-making power. Aristocracy, the wealthy landowners rule. Tyrant. Somebody takes power by force, called tyranny. They rule. Now we're getting into democracy. Democracy is when the citizens rule. The citizens make the decisions. And Athens eventually becomes the democracy, which we're going to talk about right now. They chose new members for the new council by lottery because they believed this system was fairer than an election that favored the rich. You guys know how that kind of works. You have an election. People that are more powerful or more popular can win an election besides based on like skill and what they know. In 508 BC, Athens set up a democracy, which is a form of government when citizens have direct role in governing. Kleisthenes, I'm trying to remove that. His reforms did not bring change for women, foreign-born men, or slaves into the political process, but he is still credited, Kleisthenes, with beginning democracy in Athens. The idea of citizenship developed in Greek city-states. We have citizenship in the United States. If you are born in a country like today, you are a citizen of that country. With that come certain rights and certain responsibilities. For example, in the United States, a right that you have as a citizen of this country is that you can own a gun. You have freedom of speech. You can say what you want. There's a whole bunch more that are listed in the Constitution. But as a responsibility of being a citizen of this country is if they call you to fight in the war through a draft, and this generally applies to boys in our country, but if they call you to war, you have to go. If they call you to jury duty to serve and judge a court case, you have to do it. But those are responsibilities of being a citizen. Citizenship developed in Greek city-states. In ancient Greece, the only people that were considered to be citizens and have rights and responsibilities were native-born men who owned land at first, could be citizens. So at first, it was just men who were born in Athens who owned land. Eventually, they took that landowning requirement for citizenship. But still did not apply to people that were born outside of Athens. You could not become a citizen of Athens if you were not born in Athens. Could not be a citizen if you were a slave. And again, you could not be a citizen if you were a woman. You were not citizens. They thought that since the city-state was made up of lands, it was the owner's responsibility to run things. And that's why they put men in land beginning. Rights and responsibilities of the citizens. In Athens, the rights of a Greek citizen was they could gather to choose their officials and pass laws. They could vote, they could hold office, they could own property, and they could defend themselves in court. So if we look at this list, a lot of these are our rights. We have the right to own property here. We have the right to defend ourselves in court if we get accused of a crime. We have the right to vote. We have the right to choose our officials and pass laws. These are all rights of U.S. citizens today. Some responsibilities of Greek citizens, they had to serve in government. We do not have to serve in government in the United States, but they did. They also had to fight as soldiers, which again is very similar to ours, as in the draft and things like that, if we needed it. We haven't had that since the Vietnam War, which is before I was even born. So if we ever had a big war again, it may be used, but it isn't used very often. I am going to link these couple of videos in Google Classroom. This one is from Horrible Histories, which I don't know if you ever saw it, but they have it on it was a British show, and they have it on Amazon Prime Video. It's just kind of a funny comedy show where they kind of use some historical information. So this is historical wife swap, where they take a wife from Sparta and a wife from Athens, and they make them switch places, kind of really highlight the differences of being a woman in these two places. And then we're going to watch a TED Talk, a day in the life of the, I think it's a TED, yeah, it's a TED video, a day in the life of the ancient Athenians. It's going to be linked in Google Classroom. Please watch it, especially this one. This is just funny. It just gives you again some more information and more perspective between these two places that are very different for women. And that is it. What you're going to do now is go to your notebook. Go to Athens, and you're going to tell me again what's it like in the military in Athens, education, government, and the role of women. I will link a copy of the notes after class is over, and I won't put it on there before, though, so people have time to make sure they watch the video and do the notes in class. All right. And then you're going to go to here and do a compare contrast Athens versus Sparta. You need to write differences for Athens, differences to Sparta, and things that they have in common, which, again, not too much. But think back when it comes to what do they have in common, think back to what all city-states have in common. Those are going to be the things they have in common. All right. Have a great rest of your day.